What's up, guys? We're back. This time we're talking comics. I told you guys we were going to get more into comics, so I brought in the experts. This is the best I could do. So, from right to left, I got Eric, I got Jorg, and I got George. George is general manager over there at Heroes and Dragons, local comic book store. And we got Eric, general manager and owner of Scratch and Spin. So, guys, I'm going to start kicking off. Let's talk about comics, and let's start with the elephant in the room. How happy are you guys with DC Comics?
Well, I read the news on my cell phone, and George hadn't found out yet. I was like, "Oh, Dan Didio got canned from DC." Yes, I hear from the other side of the store. So
I should clarify my position on that. Even though I didn't care for Dan Didio's editorial direction he was taking the books. Mm-hmm. He's always been a really strong advocate for the comics and comics industry. So on that point, I'm all for him. Mm-hmm. But I thought that he was doing more damage to the actual DC line than he was doing good. Trying to take things back to like that. He was just going too retro, in my opinion. You know, trying to bring back 60s era characters and trying to return them to without allowing them to be changed into the current
modern
DC continuity stuff. And I'm just like, it just didn't work for me. And plus the whole he was like,
really?
I cannot even articulate thoughts really when I think about what Dan Didio did with some of the books, and
I have no issue with him personally. I mean,
I don't have an issue with him personally. I just don't, like I said, I just don't care for his vision for the path he was kind of pushing. Mm-hmm. And now there's a lot of.
But he wasn't really pushing anything so different than what you see everybody doing. I mean,
but
DC and Marvel both are getting drunk on number ones. So I mean.
Yeah, but my perspective is more from a story perspective. It's like he was intent on bringing Barry Allen back as the Flash, when I think that kind of did a lot more harm to DC than having Wally West. They brought Wally West back with the Rebirth books, and people were like, we're finally getting characters that a lot of the fans really wanted to read about. No offense meant, but Barry Allen and Hal Jordan are two of the most boring characters ever. And
really?
That is my opinion. And I'm like, let's be honest here. If
One of the first DC books I ever picked up.
Let's be honest here. If Hal Jordan was like running around today, like in comics, he would have been involved in the tailhook scandal. I'm like, just the character. And Barry Allen is like your favorite uncle. Mm-hmm. He's dependable, he's stolid, he's there, but you don't really want to read about him. You don't really want to hang out with him.
He's boring.
Pretty much.
Eric, how do you feel about it?
Well, I mean, as far as Dan's firing and that sort of thing, I think it's one of those things that, I think anyone that's been in charge for that long is going to have some missteps. I mean, I was never a really big fan of his writing as far as from a artistic point of view.
Well, tiny little bit that he did.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, but
Superboy issues. So.
But I think it was one of those things where he did shepherd DC through like I said, Rebirth, New 52. Mm-hmm. I don't really know a whole lot about what's it called, G5?
Oh, the G5 thing.
Right. Yeah.
Is it G5 or 5G?
I think it's 5G.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but
does anybody know what it is?
DC doesn't know if they're doing this again.
I guess.
Well, Jim Lee came out and he basically said that there are tons of rumors going around, and that he's trying to clarify things as much as he can without basically spilling the beans.
I guess my thing is, why not just go ahead and say what it is? Because there's so many rumors out about what it isn't.
Well, he did
clarify. Because at this point, it may or may not even happen.
Right.
Well, he did clarify C2E2 this weekend that it is not a reboot. Right. He said that on record, it is not a reboot. So my thing is, I think it's going to be more like an ultimate version of DC, kind of, because they're still going to have the main DC books. They're not touching the main Batman books, or the Superman book, or the Wonder Woman book.
Although that conflict was part of the reason that he got axed.
Right.
Yeah, Scott Snyder and him got into it, and
Because wasn't he wanting to drag in the new Dark Knight's metal thing?
I guess so. Yeah.
Into
right.
it,
yeah.
and he wanted to keep that totally separate from what I had read.
Right.
And then the little bit that I have heard rumor-wise was that, in other words, they were going to basically age all of the classic characters and then basically replace them. In essence, what Marvel did a couple of years ago, which was a flop. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I think what George is saying is absolutely right. I think if they did go with an Ultimates route or a Elseworlds route, even leading into another Crisis type of event.
If only they had Bendis on staff.
So like I said, if it did something like that, I think that would definitely be the way to go. Yeah, I think it's one of those things where obviously, no matter if you liked or didn't like what Marvel did, a few years back, it still introduced us to a lot of really cool and interesting new characters.
Right.
Some worked, some didn't. Yeah.
3 characters, more or less, yeah.
But I mean, I think it's still. I think that's part of. I think that's the part of the beauty of comics, sequential storytelling and episodic storytelling is that, in other words, you're going to try some things and it's not going to work. Sometimes it's going to work, And I think that ultimately, I'm sure, with this whole G5, 5G, whatever it is, I mean, the truth is, you can't mess with the classic formula of Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. You can't get rid of those characters. I think the way to do it is to do an alternate universe thing.
Mm-hmm. I guess my question is, you can't get rid of those characters, but you guys work in the comic industry every week. Who are you seeing in the store? Did the Ultimates line bring in new people to buy comics? Because essentially they're just selling comics to us. And
well, that's the thing, I mean, like, stuff like that does do actually what it's intended to do and bring in a new audience. I mean, you see it every time there's a major event. I mean, Marvel put a lot behind the Absolute Carnage thing coming up, and I had guys coming in the store for the first time. They'd seen a commercial on TV or YouTube, which is just like beyond me. Like, I never imagined comic books would be advertised on television, but they were excited about it and they wanted to come in and check it out. So as long as they put the proper amount of hype behind it, it'll work. It'll bring people in, and that's what comics needs always is an ever fresh audience coming in year after year. Because if no one cares in the future, they'll stop producing these things at some point. So they're always chasing that magic bullet to keep the people coming in, but it's the chase itself that keeps it going.
I think that, in other words, the experimenting in storytelling does introduce new characters to bring people in. Like, in other words, like with Spider-Verse, what I'm saying? They had already established Miles and Spider-Gwen and all these characters, but I think, once again, reaching across that kind of mainstream platform of animation and major film release, in other words, that introduced those characters to the global audience, And I think that that's just one example of a good hook to bring in new readers, like what you're talking about. I think ultimately, like what you were saying, I mean, DC, Marvel, years ago they should have had, advertisements for, Comic Shop Locator, for, comics in general on the front or tail end of every single Marvel and DC movie that came out. It just is common sense. I mean, Warner Brothers owns DC. Now that, Disney owns Marvel now, but before, whenever Marvel was self-produced, or whenever they were licensing their characters out, that should have been part of the deal. It's like, hey man, on the front of that Spider-Man movie,
because that's where it all came from.
The open in Marvel is actually the pages flipping. I guess I always wondered where was that cohesive synergy? It's like you say comic book, sell comic book. Like, it always amazed me that they did not get on board. And maybe, and I hate to bring Marvel into this because I want to get to that later, but maybe with Kevin Feige on board over at Marvel, we'll see a little bit more of that cohesiveness of when they make a movie, they tail in at the end of that movie saying, hey, let's do that. Because I always wondered, did you ever see a uptick in your store? Like, Birds of Prey came out. Did anybody was like, oh, I saw the movie?
No, but
not really.
Joker definitely did it.
Really?
Yeah, sent in a lot of people for stuff after that.
Yeah. Weirdly, I think the book that from the last year that drew more people in looking for product was Godzilla.
Yeah, Godzilla.
We had people coming in looking for Godzilla
Could
comics.
not keep Godzilla's stock to save my life. Yeah, Godzilla comics. As soon as I'd put it out, anywhere halfway visible, 5 minutes later, I'd walk by and it'd be gone. I'd be like, "Oh my God, seriously?" I mean, anything, just random issues from the '70s run at Marvel or something like that. As long as it wasn't like a $20 copy or something like that, $5 or something. Like, people are like, "Give me the Godzilla." Yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah, and then we had like a little bit of a bump, I think, when they did the Crisis story on television.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
We got a little bit of a bump from that. I don't know, Eric, if you got anything like that, but
Yeah, I would say the last time I think I really saw a real significant bump was of course whenever The Walking Dead was at its peak, and then like what was mentioned about Miles and Spider-Gwen, specifically those two characters.
Like Black Panther. I mean,
yeah, you're right. Yeah,
that
and Black Panther. Yeah,
exploded.
totally.
It was
yeah.
great. We had
nothing sent more people ever to a comic book store than
we
that.
had like 80-year-old grandmothers who'd never looked at a comic before, been in a comic shop, coming into the store looking for Black Panther comics for themselves and for their grandkids.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a phenomenon. I hadn't seen anything like that before.
But back to why they don't maybe push this more is because both companies offer a digital platform of their own. That's probably their preferred medium. I'm sure both of them have had studies for 50 years that say it would be cheaper if we stopped printing comics on paper. But then you lose
you lose a significant
the
portion
heart
your-
of the
your
of the
audience.
industry, where people love to hold a comic in their hand. They want to collect them. They become valuable. It's so ingrained in the culture. I don't think you can move away from that now. But I'm sure both companies would love to stop using the paper and paying shipping costs. So there's probably some internal conflict on that call.
So last year the big books for you guys were for DC was Doomsday Clock.
Man,
Really?
yeah.
Because
I mean, it was a good seller, but I wouldn't call it a big book.
what would you say was the big book for you guys last year for 2019 for DC?
For DC?
Yeah, because for me, my favorite book last year from DC had to be.
All the Batman Who Laughs stuff.
For me it was DC's.
Yeah, DC's.
DC's was my favorite book last year.
Deceased was really good. I think the Tom King Batman story, until the whole Catwoman wedding issue, that kind of killed it, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of people took it personally. They got faked out.
Yeah.
They're really going to be mad when Punchline dies in the next issue.
Yeah. Spoilers, no.
Sorry.
But no, we don't know. We have no future knowledge.
We know.
No, I think their DC tried to do like some big events, Event Leviathan, and that fell hard. I'm like, it did not.
But it's not
cause
dead
any
yet.
ripple at all.
That might have just been a sleeper.
I think no, it's dead.
No, because they're progressing the storyline on that, and in classic comic book style, I think people are going to come back to that first miniseries in a couple months once this story actually gets fleshed out a bit, and be like, oh, I need to see where this began, because that was just very tip of the iceberg kind of storytelling on that whole thing. And so nobody really got all that excited about it, but they still have another couple miniseries coming out.
Because a bunch of one-shots are coming out.
So I think there'll be some more interest generated, or else why would they have put this much into it? I mean, that's the funny thing about the comics industry is you can really sit, like when I'm doing the initial order every month, and you can sort of see where the math is on their calculations for how they're moving audience interest and stuff like that, as much as they're able to do so, and of course they're trying to like get in our brains as well and tempt us into ordering extra copies of this, that, and the other with ratio variants and flashy covers and whatever the case may be. But there's clues all through it, the process every month, where you can sort of sit down and figure out how this is going to work, or what they have planned, or okay, so it's not going to be a big thing now, but maybe down the road it'll develop into something a little bit bigger, with the exception of Doomsday Clock, because who knew what they were doing with that one as it was coming out, like one issue,
and it was like
3 months or something.
Oh gosh,
yeah, right.
What for you? What was the big books for you for DC last year?
I actually agree. I think Doomsday Clock for me was a big seller, but it being so spread out really killed the momentum for it. But people were still excited for it because of the creative team and the Watchmen, all those aspects. But I think it could have had much more impact if it would have come out like it was supposed to. Because originally it was supposed to be monthly, and then every 2 months,
and then every 3 months.
Well, they wanted to dovetail it into the Watchmen TV series, which was fantastic. I'd love to see more of that kind of Watchmen storytelling going on in the comics. Why? Why couldn't you have just had it end a couple months before? It wouldn't have been that big a deal, right?
Yeah, I think that as far as DC goes, the big thing for me is the DC is always consistent. You know what I'm saying? In other words, they have a regular stable of books you can always count on. In other words, whenever I'm doing my order every month, it's like I can always look back and see my sales numbers, see the stability. That's one thing that
tell you my DC order off the top of my head.
Right.
I order the same quantity of each one almost every month, unless like something crazy happens and I get like 10 new subscribers in a week.
Right.
Then it fluxes. But the basic pars on all those titles are always the same because they're consistent, and that's what's so great about that publisher, basically. I mean, Marvel fans are always kind of scratching their head figuring out where to go title to title every couple months because they change up so much. But DC fans largely, they know if they want Batman, it's going to be there twice a month.
That's one of the things, not to get sidetracked, but like with Marvel, I thought whenever C.B. Cebulski kind of took over, that they would get back to more of, like I said, like DC's consistency, but they haven't. To me, they've just moved back to just doing, like I said, a ton of number ones, little mini series, things almost like don't even count. You know what I'm saying?
Stuff.
Yeah, it's just kind of box filler, and because it's number ones, it's tough for the retailers to be able to be like,
how many of this do I order?
Yeah, how many do I order? Is this going to be anything of any real importance? I mean, and they've been doing that consistently, for like the last probably year. And that's something which I'm actually really surprised with CD taking over. He was always kind of like the artist editor. You know what I'm saying? He was the guy that went out and searched out new talent. He was like, I guess in a lot of ways I kind of compared him to like Joe Quesada was. He basically knew the ins and the outs of the industries on both sides. And I kind of felt like, I felt like Marvel would get more direction, but I don't really feel that, at least on my end,
So you guys mentioned Punchline. Did that catch you all off guard?
Oh, everybody.
Yeah.
Was it?
It was nuts.
How irritated were you with that? Because it was one of those things where
I love it.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I felt like as a comic shop owner, you would have liked to have known at least ahead of time.
I mean,
at least,
sure, it would have been nice, but I mean, this is ultimately what makes the industry fun, is not knowing. I mean, you don't know it's coming. All of a sudden, people start finding out, and the interest is through the roof. And people are calling. They're coming in the store. They're looking for the stuff. They want to know about it. They heard somebody talk about it. They saw a video on YouTube. Somebody was talking about it. This is the kind of
excitement
out of left field event happening. Key, that really just gets people's attention again, and like, oh yeah, weekly comic books, I should be paying attention to those because I just missed this awesome new first appearance, and so it motivates people to come in and want to check out the stores more often. It makes them want to sign up for subscriptions because then they know that they'll have the book that they're looking for in their folder waiting for them. There's no fear of missing out then at that point, and it's kind of like a sort of manipulative tool, I guess, that the industry uses, if we're being honest. But it's also what makes it fun and exciting week to week, because you never know what's going to happen exactly. Even we don't, who get the little snippets months in advance when we do the initial orders, and I try to piece it together as best I can. But if you'd have told me Punchline was coming out a month ago, I'd have been like, who?
And then you never know how the fans or how the readers are going to react. So like someone they're touting is like, oh, a big reveal of new character, might just fall flat. But then you get someone like Punchline who's just got like maybe some advanced art, maybe showing up on like a website or something, or maybe in a tweet, and suddenly it explodes. It just catches people's attention.
Does anybody know the story on that? Like, what did DC purposely release the information, or was it something that like an artist leaked out? Did anybody know the story?
I think it was the artist.
Yeah, the artist
sketches.
Released
I knew Art
a
Germ.
sketch of the panel.
I knew there was a panel out, and I
And then
knew
he had
Art Germ had a cover,
Variant cover for 94.
and they
coming
moved
out,
it
right?
up from Batman 94 to 92.
Now here's the troubling thing. That issue of Batman 92 is slated for release on April 1st of 2020, which is April Fool's Day. So are we going to get a Punchline on April 1st? That is my question. I mean, and again, is it manipulative? Yes. But is it fun? Yeah, it really is. This is the kind of crazy planning that goes into this stuff that these people set up, and probably 5 people realize that it was April Fool's Day when this book is coming out so far. But when people do realize if there is something going on, you got to be like, wow, these folks really know what they're doing. And again, back to Dan Didio, that would have been one of his calls too.
Interesting. Yeah, I never thought about that.
I didn't really think about when it was coming out or the fact that it was moved up. I just knew that was her first, because we talked about it. That would be her first cover
official,
official cover appearance.
So the Hulk 181 for Punchline.
Well, I saw on some speculator site they were saying that they're speculating her true first appearance was in the Black Label Birds of Prey. Like you see a silhouetted shot
really?
of her.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's like Joker's on the phone and she's like standing there, but she's all
But you
blacked
can't
out.
see who it is. So people are speculating. You're right. I have seen that.
So it's like that issue of Web of Spider-Man where Venom's like back in the shadows or whatever, but it came out like 2 weeks before 300, and then you finally see him fully in 300.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's, I know there's a big speculation of is that really her, because I don't think DC has commented on that yet, right?
No.
Yeah. So definitely, yeah. And then I think I read somewhere that she's going to show up in Nightwing 2 and the Joker. I think the Joker special, right? Is that right?
It's supposed to be in the 100. What is it? 100-page Joker, 80-page.
Yeah.
Is that going to be her origin?
Hopefully, I don't know.
Could be.
I haven't really read anything about them doing an origin. I wouldn't be surprised if they just worked that in with the whole Batman story, with the designer story.
But the funny thing about that is you just mentioned designer. So if you got, what is it, Batman '89, you got the first appearance, but then you also got designer who looks like a rocked out old school Deathstroke with a giant D on his face.
Exactly.
It's like it has all this stuff on him. It reminds me of Deathstroke. It looks like Deathstroke and Deathstroke put together. I think, Jorg, isn't that what you said? It looks like an old school Deathstroke and Deathstroke put together.
Wow.
Only thing he doesn't have is the gold face.
Yeah.
Nice. Pretty much. He's wearing like the lace cuffs, and
he's got the
like
jacket.
I'm like, I saw that and I'm like, okay, what 1980s garbage dump did he fall out of? You know, I'm not. You know, I'm just like,
Did you?
I'm just like, okay. But yeah, I was like, okay, I didn't expect that look for that character. I was like, all right. But, you know, then he's, you know, talking with like a naked Riddler. And I'm just like, yeah, just an emaciated naked Riddler. And I'm just like, no, just. So yeah.
It's interesting how like I said, DC and Marvel go backwards and forwards, kind of mirroring each other's, storylines or sales tactics. What is it like in, was it Thor 2? Doesn't Kate basically do something about Crisis? I haven't read it yet.
Yeah.
I guess it does kind of mirror the idea of Crisis, but there's this thing, the Black Winter coming through.
Yeah.
And it's what destroyed the universe before our current universe. Galactus being the only survivor, of course, so he comes crash landing into Asgard to employ Thor's help, and he's missing like an arm. He's all busted up. It's really cool, actually. I hate to get too hypey about Donny Cates, but like, ooh, you had some fun stuff. So
he's the good guy for the cosmic stuff for sure.
So it shows you in the first couple pages Black Winter taking over this other universe that had their heroes and their gods, and they talk about the god of power and the god of speed and the green god and the god of detectives and so. Obviously calling out basically the entire Justice League right there on that page, but in a really sincere and celebratory way. But they still died while the Marvel heroes were about to take care of this problem for you.
I'll be honest with you. I kind of like those. I miss those old shots.
Yeah.
I remember when Justice League made fun of the Ultimates.
Yeah.
When the Ultimates came out, this gritty. I miss that. I miss that back
Squadron
and forth.
Supreme.
Yes.
Yeah.
Made fun of Justice League. Yeah.
And now, with regard to that number 2 on Thor, there's like some stuff in Avengers, but talking about the Avengers have to fight anti-life, and this has gotten a lot of people online, especially if it's going to be like an unofficial DC Marvel crossover. So people are kind of looking at the DC books now, going, well, where are these Marvel pastiches going to show up?
Can we talk about that elephant in the room? Because have you been getting questions lately about people asking if Marvel's going to buy DC?
Oh yeah, gosh, that's always kind of been rumored for a long time.
I mean, we're talking. Let's talk about the other big two, Marvel. Is that a good thing?
What, Marvel buying DC?
I think no.
No.
I think that's horrible for comics.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen anyway, because there's no way AT&T would give up or even license those characters to Marvel, because Disney couldn't afford it, I don't think. AT&T
Disney can afford anything.
Yeah, I don't.
So,
yeah.
Disney could buy like 5 AT&Ts.
Would the government let them buy 5 AT&Ts? Is the question.
Not. But my thing is,
Mouse.
there is no way that company is going to sacrifice. I mean, that's basically, it's a gold mine for them.
It's
It's an idea farm. That's what they keep. That's what they keep them.
But
going.
it's like Ford buying Chevrolet. I mean, it's just in I don't know why it has to be that way in our society, but Americans apparently love two opposing sides.
Coke or Pepsi.
And that's exactly.
Cheese Nips or Cheez Its.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Republicans or Democrats.
There has to
Marvel
be
or DC, Ford, Chevy.
Xbox versus PlayStation. There has to be a
right.
rival.
Yeah, always. So that's the way we captivate people in this country, and I mean I can see it, but I never. No, I don't think it's going to happen at all.
So
I don't think Marvel would even want to. I mean,
know.
They've got so much top tier talent in their bullpen right now that's churning stuff out. They'd have to, of course, take on more writers from DC to keep the books coming out, but they'd be tempted to move some of their other writers around. It would just muddy the waters way too much. I'm sure they do a good job, but I don't think either company wants that.
So for you guys, we're in 2020.
People are really freaked out about it.
But I guess where does this stuff get started? Because I remember when
this was cosmic book news. I think.
Stop. That
exactly,
the clickbait.
Right. Exactly. So.
Little clickbait.
But the internet.
Clickbait takes hold sometimes.
It does.
And opinion can form reality. As much as I hate to admit it, but it happens.
Yeah, didn't that happen basically with like Deadpool when they released the little segment of that little action sequence with him on the bridge? That little what do we call it, animatronic or whatever, and that's what basically fueled them getting the movie made. When I'm pretty sure that's correct. I think I don't know if it was Rob Liefeld or the director or somebody leaked it basically, or maybe it might have even been Ryan Reynolds. But that showed basically what they had planned or what they had pitched, and then because of the reaction on the internet, basically that made Fox go like, hey, there is a want for this film, And then of course that came to become one of the biggest comic movies ever.
Well, you talk about like hype and it being a creative farm or Wolverine. You guys, Wolverine #1 just came back after actually the main Wolverine character. What, 5 years he hadn't had a book?
3, I think.
3. Yeah.
Is it 3? Okay. How well was that a big book for you guys? Was that people are clamoring for Wolverine to come back?
Sure, especially Wolverine drawn by Kubert. I mean, nobody feels bad about that. So yeah.
Well, I think he's just he's a cult character. He's a character people love, and them to have actually kept him out of his own solo book for that long. You know what I'm saying? I think that just helped build that hype. And like what Jorg was saying, it's all about building the hype and trying to get people interested. And I think it's just one of those things where people were excited to see him come back. And speaking of like rumors, have you guys seen the rumor about Henry Cavill getting courted?
Yes.
Another rumor that got started.
I shared that out myself, and I think that would be actually a cool casting.
I'm good with it.
Yeah,
I like Henry Cavill.
Interesting.
I like Henry Cavill. I'm always for him to get more roles. I thought he was a good Superman. I thought the movie.
But if he needs to shave his mustache to be Wolverine,
no,
he better do it this time. I don't care what else is working on.
God.
But you talked about the hype, and last year the biggest book was House of X, Powers of X from Marvel.
Sure,
Did you guys see that coming? Like, was it like you knew it was going to be like George? You've been reading comics for a while, longer than all of us. Did you see that? Did you see that hype coming for that book?
I think at that point with the X books, because let's be honest, the X books that were not really performing well because they didn't want to invest in them, they didn't want to promote them, and then once they brought it all back in house, I think. The fans, from the reader perspective, people were like, okay, something's going to happen. And people were hopeful that the books would kind of reinvigorate the X line. But just the sheer insanity surrounding those books when they got released and what they did in them, I don't think anyone really saw that coming. That caught everybody by surprise. Yeah. Issue 2, what was it, with the Moira reveal? Yeah. That caught everybody.
The Secret Lives of Moira McTaggart.
Yeah, that caught everybody off guard. It was like, okay, well, this, and then the whole, the whole question about the other lives she lived, are those timelines still out there? How does her power work?
Which timeline
Give us an
are we
explanation,
in?
Marvel, how her power works. Because it caught everybody off guard. And then I'll say one thing: Marvel has ridden that wave into this year, and the X books are just insanely popular. Yeah. We've started seeing some drop off, but I
not
think
all that much.
Not all that much, and now I think when they announced they were doing like other books, like miniseries, like you've got Hellions coming out, you've got the Cable book coming out this week. I think
Children of the Atom.
Let's not even talk about that.
See, I'm actually interested in that.
See, I'm looking at the cover on that, and all I can think of is just the whole concept where the X-Men had sidekicks. And I look at the covers and the characters, and I'm like, these just look like really bad pastiches of current
this is going to be like
characters,
which is what most of the new X-Men characters usually are. So it's going to be like the new Mutants. It's okay. I'm into the new.
I don't think there's a lot of hate for that book online.
See, I guess I'm the opposite, where I look at that book and I look at Hellions and I look at Children of the Atom, and I'm like, I'm more interested in Children of the Atom because it's new characters, it's something totally new, and it kind of ups the X-Men, as if kind of like on the Avengers. What if they had sidekicks? What if you had Captain America and a Bucky? And I'm interested in that. I'm interested to see that, but for you did a midnight release for X-Men #1.
Right.
Did you do it because you thought the excitement for that book was going to be big, or you was like, it's just a #1 and it's X-Men, it's a no-brainer?
Well, I think before we actually discussed that point, and for me, it was like, I mean, I'm a big Hickman fan, so I mean, like, I wanted to support just because of Hickman, you know, and being from South Carolina. Plus, I just like his stuff, you know. So that's one of the reasons why I ordered heavy and why we did the midnight. But I felt like, you know, from a business perspective, I think it's smart that Marvel hired Hickman because the way he writes, you know, he is such a complex writer and does so many layers. And because the X-Men is so layered, you know, I think it's good to have him come on board to kind of like,
It's like
you
an
know,
onion.
Yeah.
and he's the guy to peel it. You know what I'm saying? I think the one thing that I'm worried about, kind of like what George said, a little bit of, you know, some of the titles have fell off some as far as overall sales, is that's always been the problem with the X-Men is that there's too much almost.
They get oversaturated.
Yeah.
Right. And that would be my fear as far as like long term is that while he's telling this great
they need to show it a little
complicated
bit,
story,
for sure,
they need to like narrow it down, you know.
But they get drunk on the sales. I mean,
Right.
both companies do it. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
Deceased was just supposed to be like a one and done
Yeah.
storyline, and now, you know, we've
Got
got all
Unkillables.
kinds of
Unkillables.
sequels coming out of it. Yeah, and I'm sure we'll see plenty more in that vein. You know, but you know, and you can't hate them for it. You know, I mean, just like you and me.
But it
saw
does-
the sales on the first Powers and House of X books, and we're like, oh, let me bump that up to 30
Exactly.
copies for the next ones. You know,
But as a fan, it does make it hard to read, especially expensive if every
Yeah.
book is $3.99, $4.99, and we have this.
And now
What is the Swords of? What is it? The new X big book that's coming out, or is it what is it? Sword with all the swords, Power of the 10, whatever the thing, where every X-Men has a sword. And have you not seen
Oh,
the?
I think I've seen like some
Yeah.
promo
Yeah,
stuff on
it came out last week.
okay.
I think you've got like giant-sized X-Men coming out now, like the silent issues, kind of. Which I'm like, okay, that's an interesting kind of thing, but you know.
I mean, I picked up the Marvel Girl and White Queen, or I forget what it's
Jean
called.
Grey
but-
and Everett.
Jean Grey, yeah. I picked that up. I thought it was a very interesting concept. I thought it was a very, as far as storytelling, I thought it was very well done. I was like, it was different.
From a marketing perspective, it's also good because unless you were reading like the main X-Men book with the Children of the
Yep.
Vault, you will not know what's going
Nope.
on.
Right.
So you have to go back and get you have to get those issues, and you have to go back and buy like back issues too because the Children of the Vault showed up in like the mid 2000s, I think 2005.
That's when.
2006.
But again,
That's
always
when
been.
that's when Sabretooth was on the team. And
yeah, and they had like it was like when Rogue led the X.
It was during the.
time.
I think the storyline's called Supernova when the Children of Heaven showed up.
And so you know, I'll give Marvel props. They're good at like cross pollinating their X books, but like I said, I also think that they tend to oversaturate the market. This is the biggest complaint I've heard from people, that there are going to be too many X books,
Right.
and you won't be able to buy them all, and
but
they won't be all good quality.
That's also good
So,
because when he finally unveils his
Master
master
plan.
vision of what all this is leading up to in 10 years, there will be so much left back that he's gone back and referenced, just like, you know, those early Volume 2 X-Men issues that you're talking about right now. You know, people are looking for them now all of a sudden. This is all good, healthy. This is what the industry has always been. It should drive you back into the back issue boxes. That's why they're there, you know, because all this stuff is relevant at some point. You just haven't read it yet. And that's, again, the journey, the exploration never ends. And so in 10 years, when there have been all these X titles that have come out in support of Hickman's vision, and nobody has picked them all up and read them all except for a few people, you know, it'll be more fun for those folks who are getting on board then because, oh, wow, this ties into that. I didn't even know this existed, yada, yada. I mean, there's nothing more fun for me after all these years of being in comics, and it still happens to me almost every day, is going through a box going, wow, I cannot believe they printed that. I've never seen that comic in my life. You know, and I've seen a lot of comics in my life, but there's still so many out there that I even get surprised on a regular basis. You just never know what your fingers are going to come across when you're walking through a box of books, and that is what the fun of the industry is all about.
And that's ultimately like what he's saying with that's what Donny Cates is doing with all that cosmic stuff
yeah.
now. I mean, he's planting all kinds of little seeds in every single book. You know, obviously that are layering on top of the next one. You know, I think with him, you know, he's obviously doing some nods to old stuff as well. But within his own run, that's where I think it really works because it's all current stuff that people can go back and quickly get, or is not like an arm and a leg. So that kind of makes his stuff, I think, even more relevant, because people can go and take and it's going to make them want to go back and pick up Guardians, pick up Thor, go back even further, look at his Cosmic Ghost Rider, all that stuff, So yeah, I think that's definitely exciting.
And most of the stuff that he pulls from is essentially like old dollar book stock, which is why it's really great because it's really accessible then to anybody who wants to check it out because there's plenty of copies of those books still floating around out there and they can be got cheap. And I think it seems sort of intentional that he does it that way, that he's trying to, well, I mean, not dissimilarly from what you were complaining about Didio doing, but I mean, going back and mining some of these B, C, and D level characters.
I have no problem with mining those, bringing those, B and C list characters up and making them more prominent. It's the way that they try and do it, that without updating them.
Right.
Yeah, that's the biggest.
Make them a Herald of Galactus for God's sake.
Why not? Let's go ahead. Let's get leapfrog and make him a Herald.
What's been the book for? So we're just hitting March. What's been the book from Marvel that you've been like, either that surprised you that came out, or the book that's coming out that you're going to be like, that's the one that people need to pay attention to?
Well, I think it's hit with Thor. I mean,
is it Thor?
Thor did not dissimilarly from Powers of X and House of X as far as new Thor title. Thor's already very popular. Donny Cates is writing it. Everybody loves him. Okay, so let me do my normal Thor order plus 20-25% more just to cover Hickman or Cates. Oh look, I sold out in 5 minutes. You can't see him coming even on your best day, and people have been freaking out. And then issue 2 came out with the possible DC, panels in there, and people I had to order more copies from Midtown at retail price just to satisfy the number of people who between issue 1 and issue 2 signed up for subscriptions on that book.
Really?
And to have just a couple copies left hanging around still if somebody wanted one after the fact. Because I hate to hype him too much, but the guy is good. He really is good.
Yeah, with that, I haven't read it yet. I've just read about it. I've got it in my stack. But I know that, like you said, the Black Winter thing, that character was that introduced in 3 or was it 4? Has it even been revealed yet? What Black Winter is?
Oh, Black Winter it's an event.
Yeah,
it's like a natural occurrence.
Because it was what Galactus was running from in issue 1.
So he's not a guy.
It's not a guy. Just like
it's just
a horse. It's a Okay.
It's basically. Our universe is the Monitor, and the Black Winter is the Anti-Monitor, and
it sweeps through and just
annihilates.
Right.
It's like entropy, kind of just destroying everything.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering if they were going to personify it somehow or not.
They probably will eventually.
It'll probably be something that'll be like, oh, this is in this book, and then everybody will run to go get that new character. One of the things I wanted to ask you about with the big 2, and because I know Indie does it a little bit, but not as much, the variant covers. Has that been good or bad for you guys? Because I'll buy a variant cover if I like the art because I've been learning to hang books. Yes. My wife has been letting me frame them, hang them. I've got a couple of them in here. Has that been a good or bad thing for you guys?
I think it depends on the variant. Some of the companies have a tendency to produce 40 to 50 variants for books that are not.
By some of the companies, we mean Marvel.
That's what we're number one. Yeah.
Sometimes they'll produce books with 40 or 50 variants
DC
that
now
are not relevant.
Issue 1000s and 750s are getting a little drunk on variant covers again as well.
So many variants
they're definitely in their cups at this point. I mean,
I agree with
that. And the ones that they're doing it for, I mean, not that Wonder Woman and Flash are not meritorious characters in the pantheon of DC heroes, but
it's not action.
It's not issue 1000. I can understand doing 10 different variant covers for every decade of those 2 characters because they're 2 of the first. And of course Wonder Woman and Flash very early characters as well, but still 10 years behind almost of Superman and Batman, and 250 issues behind at least. I really had to sit down and scratch my head and I actually crunched the numbers on Wonder Woman because I was like, there's no way she's got 750 issues out, but sure enough, she actually did. Yeah, it was crazy.
And then they're going back to the numbering now with Flash.
Flash.
That way they can't get to that 1,000.
They're aiming for that 800,
right.
So they can, they
do it again,
800 and put those 15, 20 variant covers out and do the big $10 book.
So they're fun because you'll have copies of Detective 1000, Action 1000, Wonder Woman 750 still around after the fact, and to the uninitiated that walks in the store and sees a nice, thick square-bound book on the shelf, for not a ridiculous amount of money with a flashy cover, this looks like a good place to start. I think this is what goes through their heads, when they're walking around looking, trying to figure out where to start, as so many people do when they're looking at comic books. So it's good for that, and the variant covers themselves, just on regular books that aren't big number events or something, they're copies of the book that's selling. That's always ultimately a good thing. I think the celebration of the high-end art that goes on to a lot of them is a really wonderful thing, because that's obviously half of the enjoyment of this medium, is that you get great storytelling and great artwork,
And that is something, you compare the variant covers today from the ones that they're putting out in the 90s, all foil covers and just kind of cheap looking kind of art. And you look at the stuff coming out today, and a lot of people just buy the books just for those variant covers, because the art is that good.
Oh, I've definitely bought a couple of Vampirella or Red Sonja because Frank Cho drew it.
Yeah.
Because I was like, if Frank Cho's going to draw a variant cover, I will buy that.
Yeah, or like an Alex Ross cover or an Art Germ cover or something like that, and it's worthy of being framed and hung in your living room.
It really is.
I mean, I think
And much smaller than a poster, so.
yes. And
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because DC has now decided to go and do poster books of these variant covers. They've done one with Art Germ, they've done Jim Lee, they've done Frank Cho.
Yep.
Could we see Marvel doing something? Because Marvel is notorious with variant covers.
Yeah.
Why haven't we seen something like that from them?
Well,
if they don't, they're going to be missing the bus, I think.
As many variant covers as they do, I'm so shocked that they haven't done a poster book yet.
Well, maybe they don't. It could be they don't want to be so obviously copycatting their competition.
They literally do that every day.
Well, not so obviously. Like, they've got these, we'll do this.
you have to wait at least 4 months. It's like after the first date, you have to wait 2 days before you call them back. So, okay, you guys had the idea first. Okay, we'll give you 6 months with it, but they probably have the first 6 ready to go, they're already sitting in boxes on shipping containers somewhere. We'll find out about it in 4 months at this point, so, yeah.
But talking about your variant covers, I'll say this once again: DC being consistent. I've always appreciated that DC does just the A and the B covers. You know what I'm saying? Now, one thing I don't like, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but them basically raising the price by $1 for their B covers. For the card stock, yeah. To me, since I've published comics before, it is not that much more expensive. It's a cash grab. Really, it really is.
Yeah, it is.
And as a collector,
But does it work?
Oh yeah, because they do use the right artist. It's not it's not junk art like what George was saying.
Yeah.
They put what's his name, Matina, on the B covers. They'll have really great artists on there, and it does make people want to pick it up. But still, I don't know. I guess maybe ethically, I feel like that's like I don't know. That seems wrong. It's
I feel dirty every day. There's no doubt. Yeah, I go home, I scrub under my fingernails. I splash scope on my face. I got to get it all out. I run around the yard butt naked, screaming at the top of my lungs with a beer in my hand. It's all I can do some days, but it's the fun.
It's business,
It's perpetuating the fun, and they learn from their mistakes, at least. Obviously, the publishers. If they don't, one of the indies will certainly capitalize on their mistake, and they're doing a great job as well.
It's funny you mentioned indies, because I wanted to go there.
I had a feeling you did.
Because last year, Once Upon a King, was it Once Upon a Future King?
Once in Future.
Once in Future King was that was the hot book, everybody, and then Something Was Killing the Children.
Yeah.
Boom Studios, I gotta give them credit. I don't know how they're doing it. I don't know if they're shortchanging and only printing it. But to you, how are they doing it? I love the book. Dan Morgan, is it Dan Morgan? Who's doing the art for Future?
I think so.
That art is amazing. But it's another Arthurian legend, but I don't know why this one works.
Because I think it's a really good story with entertaining characters. You've got, if no one has read Once in Future King, go and pick up the first issue. It's really good.
It's about an 8th print by now.
8th print, yeah.
Pretty much. And basically it's like, someone like a retiree in a retiree home who has this entire secret history with this organization, having to go and recruit her clueless grandson or nephew, I forget which she is, into, kind of picking up and taking over for her because she's not physically able to do this anymore. And they do kind of take a different slant on the whole Arthurian legend, it's much more dark. But it's very entertaining. And now they're kind of moving into, the next story arc looks like it's going to be really good. With some carryover characters, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be entertaining. I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with it. Something is Killing the Children, I think, has just got a lot of good word of mouth. The art on the book is really good. The story is engaging, but I think mostly for that one, the success of that book has been the word of mouth. People have really got into that story. People like a good scary story, and this is a good scary story. Yeah. So it's like The Plot, or some of the Hill House comics from the Joe Hill imprint at DC.
Yeah, those have really started to blow up. Yeah, I've had a lot of people come in and add those on, or
I love that.
Come after that.
Ever since I was I think 16, and I realized hey, you have a G.I. Joe figure named after you. That's cool. I wish my dad was Stephen King. And then he grows up and oh, okay, well you're a chip off the old block, aren't you? And you still love G.I. Joe. You are awesome. Yeah, he's really good, and that stuff is very well. What's the word I'm looking for? Curated. Thank you. Yes, that was exactly the word I was looking for. Sandman Universe stuff too. Has lost a little bit of the buzz when it first came out. I mean, those books are on 13, 14 issues now, but again, you've got 5 books coming out that are up to 13, 14 issues. That's incredible nowadays in this industry, that they keep rolling along that well, and people are still picking them up month after month. The TV properties that we'll get out of these sorts of things in the future are going to be mind-blowing.
Like they've already talked about doing a crossover between the Lock and Key show on Netflix and the Sandman show on Netflix.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, I'm all on board with that. So yeah, I think that's going to be amazing if they do it right, because.
But that's the strength of an indie book. It's Joe Hill has done the people who read Lock and Key are a massive fan base who have supported this when it was a pilot that got killed, and everybody. And so that's, to me, that's the power of the indie. I would say Umbrella Academy was a big deal when it was a Deadly Class.
Yeah. I still get calls at the store for people looking to start reading Umbrella Academy, and there's some confusion about how it started. Is it an ongoing series? Is it a one-shot? Is it a graphic novel? And I'm like, no, it's 3 separate miniseries, 6-issue miniseries. But you can find the graphic novels pretty easily these days. But yeah, I'm like, I still get calls, and same thing with Lock and Key. I'm starting to get calls for people looking for some Lock and Key, and I'm like, that's going to be hard to find unless they do reprints on the graphic novels and stuff. But it's out there, and there's definitely interest in those properties.
So another thing Didio did that I don't hate him for is take the lesson of the indies. Of course, DC has always done this with their old Vertigo imprint and the other myriad imprints they've had over the years, and Marvel to a lesser extent. But, we were talking about this Hill House universe and the Sandman universe coming out by DC, but these totally separate entities and their publishing portfolio that basically came out of independent books. Sandman was, of course, a Vertigo title back in the day, but that was still, I couldn't have told you when I was 14 years old that Vertigo was DC. I was just like, ooh, Sandman, I like this, Yeah. Found out eventually, and then I was like, okay, I still like it. But
But Eric, for you, indie books, do they do well for you as well, or is it something?
Very much so. I mean, I think it's one of those things. Once again, because I've done the publishing side of things, I've always had a soft spot for indies. I feel like if anything, Marvel and DC use Image and the indies as a, what do you call it, AAA baseball or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Minor league.
Yeah.
Sure.
So basically, that's where Donny Cates came from. I mean, he was at Image doing God Country and Redneck, and that's how he parlayed his excellent writing into a gig at Marvel. And now, like I said, he's the man at Marvel. You know what I'm saying? Doing all the cosmic books. They obviously really leaned on him, and he's like gonna be the next Jason Aaron. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's one of those things where, I feel like right now we're like in a golden age for independent books. You see companies like Scout and Vault coming out. They're doing really good quality indie books.
Good money shot.
Ahoy
Right.
Comics.
Yeah.
Dark Horse has finally kind of got its feet back under it after losing a lot of their licensed properties. They're kind of coming with a Bang.
Yeah,
It's
that
a
was
huge
hit
thing.
on
I
day
definitely
one.
missed that one.
Yeah, everybody did.
Yeah.
And Image is still chugging along. They're still putting out a lot of really good product. You've got stuff like Boom Studios and their imprint within Boom Studios. I forget. Is it Boombox?
And Boombox and Kaboom, right?
Yeah.
So they do that. Yeah.
And they're putting out good product. They're putting it out on schedule. DC and Marvel take a note. And they're actually getting some traction and some real interest. And I think this is a good thing. I think it's really great. I wish more people would kind of move away outside of the big two and kind of read more indie stuff because there's something for everybody.
They are.
I mean, if you like Blade Runner, that Titan book,
that book is amazing.
Yeah.
I love that book.
I mean, I only picked it up. I picked it up before the Art Germ cover, and then I realized that we're continuing the story from the movie, and I was like, wait a minute, what?
No,
It's really good.
Yeah, but it's like it's set like this is the first Blade Runner fiction that takes you off world.
Yes.
And it's kind of moved forward a couple of years. It's no longer set in 2019, but that's a starting point. And now it's like, okay, well, this is really cool. This is very interesting. And what are we going to get next? It's going to be new. Like, there's stuff in the last issue. I'm like, they have this. They never mentioned this in the movies. Is this? I'm kind of with it, but I'm kind of like, they never mentioned that in the movies. So I'm just like, I'm waffling, kind of like.
I'm for it. I'm all for it. I love Blade Runner. Anytime there's a new property that comes out. And then I forget who's Robotech Remix. You've got that. I know Boom has been doing the Buffy Hellmouth crossover. You got a whole brand new Buffy that was introduced.
Firefly continues to be strong from them as well.
Yeah, all their Whedon books are all been really good sellers.
They have like weird books like Ghosted in LA, which is actually very funny.
And slowly picking up steam in its own right. I get.
I've heard rumors there's like options possibly for a TV show for that. So I'm just like, oh, that'd be kind of cool.
I think we'll see almost all these properties at some point. That certainly seems to be the trend. Is that Hollywood has figured out that this is a gold mine. This is a place.
At least for story. Yeah, you're right. For storytelling.
This is the most imaginative form of writing that we have in this country anymore on a regular basis, and they finally figured it out. It's beautiful.
It's not just fantastic stuff. You have very down to earth stuff too, like Blankets. The graphic novel that came out a while back.
That's about 10, 15 years now.
Yeah, that came out. You've got stuff like you've got that. You've got stuff like
Sculpture.
You've got stuff like Strangers in Paradise, which they keep on talking about making into a show on HBO, but they never do.
Local creator Nimona with Noelle Stevenson. So yeah, you can almost see where you have all these streaming titles, and then you have all these comic storylines, and they're like, what do we put on our streaming service? And they're like, flip through the previews book, go get that.
Literally,
Go get that guy,
Yeah, I'm like, and it's a great time to be a comic fan, or just to be a fan of genre stuff in general. But also, it's not just genre stuff that are in these books too. There's a lot. Like I said, there's something for every taste. Westerns, romances,
Space westerns.
Well, hell,
space romances.
Ed Brubaker's about to do. Brubaker's about to do a Western book that's coming out soon?
I think I've read about that. I
Yeah.
don't recall, but look at.
I think I know what you're talking about, but I think I'm not allowed to talk about it.
Look at books like Incognito, or the crime noir stuff.
Philadelphia.
Or Vampire State Building.
Yeah, that one's
I love that. Just the title on that one made me laugh.
Totally. That's the artist from Walking Dead. His next project,
So if you had to, let's wrap this up because I'm hungry and I got to go actually do real work. If you had to pick a book, so somebody to get, just something that's out there, a new book to get to sell someone on, what would it be for each of you? What would be the book that you'd be like, go read this one, the art, whatever it is, doesn't matter.
Well, there's actually a book coming out this week that I'm kind of looking forward to. It's a new number one. It's called Mercy. I forget the studio, but it sounds really good. It's kind of like a Victorian, kind of Lovecraftian kind of vibe to it. The art looks really nice. The story, that's the little blurbs I've seen, look really intriguing. So I'm probably going to go ahead and get that. I'd recommend that to other people who are maybe looking for something new to step into and just try something new.
All right, Jorg?
Well, like,
no, and don't say Thor.
completely depends on who's asking for a book. From my perspective, but if somebody that walks in and I get like a vibe that they might be into the kind of stuff I'm into, upcoming Dark Horse is putting out, or no, it's not even Dark Horse. It's Red 5 Comics is doing a story called The Sumerian, which is actually like true to Robert E. Howard's original Conan stories, bloodier, sexier, and it looks like it's going to be really cool. They've got some great artists working on the book.
Okay.
And if they're sticking closer to the original Robert E. Howard stories, then it's going to be much grittier than even regular Conan readers will be used to seeing. I think that's going to be really cool.
All right, Eric, what you got? Which one do you go pitch?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Boom Studios stuff, like you're talking about. Red Mother is the one that I'm really kind of interested in. I think that's a really good book. It's a slow burn, but it's got you can see it's cinematic all the way. So I definitely would recommend Red Mother. Yeah. All
right, for me, it's going to be Far Sector from DC. I'm like George. I'm not a real big Green Lantern fan, and I've tried. You can at me if you want to. Hal Jordan is boring. I hate to agree with George, but I'm not a big Hal Jordan fan. I really loved when they turned him into a bad guy.
Yeah, and he was so interesting as Parallax.
He was finally interesting. So I really like that. Far Sector is the first time that I've really been reading Green Lantern that I've been like, this is like the artwork is beautiful.
Jamal Campbell.
Yeah,
and I mean, like that really sold me, and just the fact of a Green Lantern by herself in the middle of nowhere, and these characters that they created, like there are people with mouths in their chest.
Yeah, the trilogy.
Yes, to me, Far Sector is the one that I look forward to, and I literally sit down with a beer and I just ingest every page because that artwork is beautiful. All right, so guys, we're gonna wrap it up. I really can't tell you this enough. Go to your local comic book store, talk to the owners, talk to their general managers, pick up previews. Eric has one right there in his hand. This is what they order from. This is our first one. We're going to try to keep doing this. We're at least doing monthly. So you guys tell us what you want us to talk about. We'll try to cover the industry. We'll talk about whatever's hot, whatever we think is crap. And we're going to, Jorg is going to be very honest. George will try to keep him in line, and me and Eric will try to stay being the sensible ones. So we'll hope to see you next week. Guys, like, comment, and subscribe. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I think we're on WLTX.com. I really think they messed up and let us get on the website. All right, so we'll see you next time. Later.